welcome to Mental Survival, the channel where we talk about the psychological aspects of survivalism and prepping. My name is Cliff Hamrick, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. And today we're going to be continuing our series talking about the four primary emotions. Just to recap, those are fear, anger, sadness, and happiness. And from those four primary emotions, we get all the other emotions. And today we're going to be talking about anger. And the reason why I picked anger as my second emotion is because I think it evolved pretty much at the same time as fear. Remember, in a way, that anger is a subset of fear, because when we're afraid, we have three basic responses. We can run away, which is flight. We can stop and do nothing, which is freeze. Or we can fight back, which comes from anger. Without anger, we wouldn't have the energy to fight or to do anything. So I think that in a way, soon after fear evolved, we also got anger. Also, anger kind of comes in the form of predatory instinct. For one creature to hunt down and kill another creature for food, it requires that sort of aggressive instinct, and I think that comes from anger as well. The leopard does not hate its prey, but it does need to kill its prey, and that requires a certain amount of anger. But I do think that anger evolved with us and became a lot more complex. For one thing, I think that the emotional information that anger gives us is that something is violating one of our values. It's probably the broadest term I can describe it. Now, one of those values might be I should be allowed to live, and so anger helps us deal with that same sort of fight or flight mode, fight back and overcome my enemies. But it seems like in modern life, we get angry about things that have absolutely nothing to do with our survival. For instance, if you watch a YouTube video about, I don't know, a rich person getting off on a crime and not going to jail, that might make you angry. If you watch a video of police arresting or even shooting someone who's unarmed and not doing anything to anyone, that might also make you angry. Watching these videos don't affect our survival at all. But for some reason, we still get angry. I think that's because what we're watching is violating one of our values. Maybe we believe that justice should apply to everyone evenly, and so if someone is getting away with something, that violates one of our values. Or that people in powerful positions should not abuse that power to hurt weaker people, disempowered people, then that would, watching police officers shoot or arrest someone who didn't deserve it, would violate that as well. And so I think anger for a lot of times gives us an idea of what's wrong with a society, what's going wrong in our social group that we don't like, that needs to be repaired, it needs to be corrected somehow. So anger is not necessarily directly related to survival. Fear, for the most part, is still, I think, pretty much the same as it's always been. Something's going to hurt you, you need to do something about it. And so anger, I think, is a little more complicated than necessarily fear. Fear is still, I think, probably the most basic and primary of all the emotions. But anger does work a lot like fear. For instance, it comes from the same parts of the brain as fear. It also hijacks logic, just like fear. And I think the big thing that's similar to fear is that both anger and fear drive us to do something. We need to act on these emotions. We don't necessarily feel the urge to act on sadness and happiness, but fear and anger makes us want to do something. Even when we talk about them, we talk about the actions that these emotions can lead us to do. Fear demands that we make changes so that way we don't die. Anger drives us to want to make changes, although maybe death is not really a part of it. But one of the problems with both of those emotions is, and this is what's special about anger compared to all the others, is that even though anger and fear hijack our logic, even though anger and fear make us lose IQ points, anger makes us want to do something that is oftentimes destructive. I need to break something, I need to yell at somebody, I need to hurt somebody, maybe even need to kill somebody. And if I'm not thinking straight and I'm running on that emotion, especially if I'm in a non-life-threatening situation, then I can get in a lot of trouble. A lot of my clients come and call me because they need help controlling their anger. Because when they get angry, they explode, they yell at their wife, they say stuff they don't really mean, and it causes their marriage to fall apart. Some people even get into violent situations where they start hitting each other back and forth. One of the worst case scenarios is when two people are married together and they both have a fight response when they get angry. Because when that happens, no one wants to back down. Everyone just keeps escalating. Someone wants to always get that last word in. Someone wants to make their point or whatever, and then it just kind of keeps going. That can even lead to people going to jail. A good number of people who are in jail for murder did it. It was one of those crimes of passion, so to speak. Oftentimes, drugs and alcohol were involved. They were angry about something. They had a gun. A gun is too easy to use, and they just shot and killed somebody, and now they're in jail because they weren't thinking straight, because anger hijacked their emotion, or anger hijacked their logic, and now they're making decisions, doing things, and a lot of times those aren't really the best responses. Of course, if you add drugs and alcohol to the mix, that lowers your IQ even more, lowers your inhibitions even more. Throw in anger and a gun, usually nothing good ever comes from that. One of the things I think is also different about anger is that anger is an empowering emotion. It makes us feel like we can do something. Because if we didn't feel like it, we wouldn't actually do anything. It drives us to do things. And I think with some of my clients, and I notice this more with men, but also with some women, is that they will feel a particular way, but then it becomes into anger. Very commonly, depression looks like anger. Like again, I said in a lot of my men clients, they have that problem, where they're actually really depressed, but it looks like anger. And so when a lot of my clients call and they say they need anger management issues, I'm immediately listening for what are they depressed about, what is not working in their life that they may be angry about, irritated with, and that's going to drive them to do something else. But with anger, we feel empowered. Depression makes us feel weak, makes us feel useless. We'll talk a lot more about that when we talk about sadness. But anger makes us feel like we can do other stuff. The problem is that we can't. Depression isn't a problem that can be fixed by yelling your way at it or hitting it or anything else like that. Depression just hangs around. And unless you're doing the sort of things you need to do to attend to depression, it's going to stay there. And you can get angry all you want. It doesn't matter. Depression doesn't respond to anger. But also a lot of people are afraid of anger. I notice this with a lot of my women clients. I think one problem that some people have with anger is they assume that anger equals violence. That if I am mad, then I'm going to hurt somebody, either through my words or through my actions. And I don't want to hurt anybody, so therefore I'm not going to let myself get angry. We also have socialized women that it's not okay to be angry. For women, if they are angry, then they're a bitch, and nobody listens to them, and just should shut up and quit yelling. Even though women have just as much right to be angry about stuff as men do, and even express it the same way as men do, but our society pretty much denigrates women who get angry. One of the problems with men is we're perfectly fine with men being angry. In fact, anger is one of the few emotions that we allow men to have. One of my professors in grad school said that the only emotions that men are really allowed to have is they can be angry, they can be hungry, or they can be horny. That's really about it. If men are sad, well, only pussies cry. If men are afraid, well, cowards are afraid. Even like love and romance, that's mushy girly stuff. You only do that just to get laid. And so our society even programs that it's okay for men to be angry. It's not okay for women to be angry. And then that kind of drives some of the big differences between the genders. I've noticed that a lot of my female clients with eating disorders also have problems with anger. When I first started working with clients with eating disorders, I talked to a friend of mine, Stacy Watkins, who specializes in eating disorders, and I asked her, as someone starting out working with folks with eating disorders, what's the thing that I need to know that I probably have never learned? And she said, without hesitation, I might add, that your clients with eating disorders will be some of the angriest clients you'll ever work with, and they won't show it. And what I like is every time I tell that story to a client with eating disorders, they always smile because they know deep down that that's true. They're very angry about something, and for each client it's going to be a little different. They have different reasons to be angry, but they have this anger that they just squash down. They don't want to feel it. They don't want to express it. They don't want to do anything with it. And a lot of them, when I ask them, they'll say it's because they're afraid that if they start getting angry, they'll never stop and they'll do something that's going to hurt somebody. And so one of the things we have to work on with them is to express their anger in healthy outlets. And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. Because anger is a very useful emotion. We think of it in destructive terms of violence and breaking things and destroying things and damaging people and property, and again through words or deeds or whatever. But anger can be have very positive outcomes. I always like to use the example of the civil rights movement. That the civil rights movement, at least as Martin Luther King was expressing it, was not a violent movement, but it was a angry movement. This was a group of people who were tired of being treated like second-class citizens, and they decided they weren't going to do it anymore. So they started to just break the laws, not in a violent way, but if they weren't allowed to sit someplace, then they would sit there. If they weren't allowed to go someplace, they would go there anyway. They would march through the streets, not really damaging property or causing riots or anything, but they were just making their voices heard. They basically were angry enough to say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. But they didn't necessarily break things, hurt people, destroy property, or anything else like that. Gandhi, same thing. His movement in India was based upon that same principle, that we are not going to engage in violence, but we are going to use our anger to stand up and not tolerate things anymore. So with anger, when it becomes a problem, and it's very easy for anger to become a problem, like we described, then there are many ways to control it. Again, I'm going to harp on this. Through mindfulness meditation, we start gaining better control over our emotions. So if you find that you get angry, get irritable, maybe a little snappy, then try and meditate every day, at least 10 minutes every day, because through mindfulness meditation, we again start getting more control over the emotional parts of our brain. We start second-guessing our emotions, and we start deciding that there's really no need to get angry in this moment. Because like I said, most of the reasons why we get angry today is not for survival purposes. We're getting angry because something's violating our values, and what we really need to do is stop and take a step back and decide, is this something I really need to act on, or can I just let it go? When it comes to anger with people, what I tell my couples is if you get angry, split apart, get away from each other. Anger can come up really fast, but it can also dissipate really fast. If you continue to feed it, it will keep getting stronger and meaner and nastier and keep going down a road that you don't want to go. If you can just split apart, don't talk to each other, go to separate rooms, leave, whatever, just for an hour or two, that can be enough to kind of let the emotions come back down, let your IQ come back in, let your logic get re-engaged, and you can start thinking things through again, and you might realize there's no really point in arguing anyway. This was a dumb argument. I have a lot of clients who they've always heard the, never go to bed angry. I always say, no, go to bed angry. Go to bed, get some sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you may realize that the whole argument thing was just stupid and, no point in continuing. Staying up and continuing to fight and argue and trying to resolve the situation when both of y'all are not engaged with your logic, you're not in a sense ready to start making decisions or anything, that's just a recipe for disaster. So just go to bed. Someone needs to sleep on the couch or the guest room, then go do that. But definitely get apart from each other. And then again, another one is that deep breath. And I think we discussed that in the mindfulness meditation videos, that just taking a long, slow, deep breath gets oxygen in your brain, gets your heart rate down, gets your blood pressure down, and makes it easier to just sort of relax from a physiological aspect. And so when somebody says something that makes you angry, take that pause, take a breath, and let the emotion just sort of come over and then slip away, and then respond, and then react, and that sort of thing. So anger is a very powerful tool, but it can be a very destructive tool. And so that's why it has to be honed, it has to be watched over, because it's very easy for people to find themselves in situations that are really bad because anger led them to do something or say something that really has tripped up everything else. So anyway, I hope you found this video informative. If you did, please subscribe, give me a like. I have my Patreon account link down below. So if you feel so inclined, then donate to my Patreon account. And I will see you all next week. Bye.